Hello everybody and welcome back to the virtual revision class of Network and Cybersecurity 15 EC 835. Here again we are going to continue revising module 3, which is IP security. So in the previous class we had completed revising IP security overview and IP security policy. Today we are going to cover something called as encapsulating security payload or ESP. Coming to ESP or encapsulating security payload, now this ESP can be used to provide confidentiality, data origin authentication, connectionless integrity, and anti-replay service, which is nothing but a form of partial sequence integrity, and also it can also provide something called as limited traffic flow confidentiality. Now the services that we discussed in the previous point depends on options selected at the time of security association or SA establishment and on the location of the implementation in a network topology. And lastly, now because message authentication is provided by ESP, the use of AH or authentication header is deprecated or reduced. Now coming towards the ESP format, this ESP format contains the following fields like Security Parameters Index or SPI, the sequence number, payload data, padding, which in turn consists of a pad length and the next header field, and lastly we have authentication data or the variable field. Coming towards the application of each field, let us first see what do you mean by security parameters index or SPI. Now the security parameters index is of 32 bits and this particular field identifies the type of security association that has been used. Next we have sequence number, which again is of 32 bits, and this is a monotonically increasing counter value and provides an anti-replay function. So this is the function of sequence number. Next is payload data, and this is nothing but a transport level segment which operates in either transport mode or tunnel mode and is protected by something called as encryption. That means this particular field is protected by encryption. Next field is padding, which consists of 0 to 255 bytes. Next is the pad length, which is of 8 bits, and this particular field indicates the number of pad bytes immediately preceding this field. Then we have the next header field, which is of 8 bits, and this next header field identifies the type of data contained in the payload data field by identifying the first header in that payload. Lastly, we have integrity check value. Now this is a variable length field that contains the integrity check value, which is computed over the ESP packet minus the authentication data field. So you can say that IV value is equal to ESP packet minus the authentication data field. So here we have the encryption and authentication algorithms. So the payload data, padding, pad length and next header fields that we saw in the previous slide are encrypted by the ESP service. Then if the algorithm used to encrypt the payload requires cryptographic synchronization data such as an IV, which is initialization vector, then this data may be carried explicitly at the beginning of the payload data field. Next, the ICV field is optional and this ICV is computed after the encryption is performed. So you need to remember that the ICV is computed after encryption. Now the order of processing facilitates rapid detection and rejection of replayed or fake packets by the receiver prior to decrypting the packet. So the reason of the particular order being followed is that the receiver can easily detect and reject the packet, which is called as fake packet. And hence, as a result of this, the impact of DOS or denial of service attacks is potentially reduced. So here we have the importance of padding. Now the padding field that we saw in ESP format serves several purposes. Firstly, if an encryption algorithm requires the plain text to be a multiple of some number of bytes, then the padding field is used to expand the plain text to the required length. So you can say that the padding field is basically used to increase or reduce the length of the message or the plain text. Also, the ESP format requires that the pad length and next header fields be right aligned within a 32-bit word. So it's a fixed value that the pad length and next header field must be off. Equivalently, the ciphertext must be an integer multiple of 32 bits, where ciphertext is nothing but the encrypted text. The padding field is used to assure this alignment. However, lastly, the additional padding may be added to provide partial traffic flow confidentiality. This is by concealing the actual length of the payload. Now, before moving to anti-replay service, let us first understand the meaning of a replay attack. So, a replay attack is the one in which an attacker obtains a copy of an authenticated packet and later transmits it to the intended destination. And then the receipt of this duplicate authenticated IP packets may disrupt service in some way or may have other undesired consequences. So what happens when an attacker receives a duplicate packet is that the authenticated IP packet may disrupt service in some way or the other. That's about this anti-replay attack. Then the sequence number field in this anti-replay service is basically designed to thwart or prevent such attacks. That means replay attacks. Next point. When a new SA or security association is established, the sender initializes a sequence number counter to 0. So each time a packet is sent to this SA, the sender increments the counter and places the value in the sequence number field. Thus, the first value to be used is 1. Lastly, if any anti-replay is enabled, that is the default, the sender must not allow the sequence number to cycle past 2 raised to 32 minus 1 back to 0. Otherwise, there would be multiple valid packets with the same sequence number. Next, if the limit of 2 raised to 32 minus 1 is reached, the sender should terminate this SA and negotiate a new SA with a new key. So the maximum value of sequence number that is allowed is 2 raised to 32 minus. Now because this IP is a connectionless unreliable service, the protocol does not guarantee that the packets will be delivered in order. That means the IP does not that the packets will be delivered in the way that they were sent. That is in the same order that they were sent. Also, it does not guarantee that all the packets will be delivered. Therefore, the IPsec authentication document dictates that the receiver should implement a window size W with a default value of W is equal to 64. We'll see that in the next slide. So here we have the anti-replay mechanism, and as it can be seen in the figure, the right edge of the window represents the highest sequence number n so far received for a valid packet. So what this right edge of the window represents? It basically represents the highest sequence number, which is nothing but n, that is so far received for what kind of a packet? Valid packet. Then, for any packet with a sequence number in the range from n minus w plus 1 to n that has been correctly received, that is properly authenticated, the corresponding slot in the window is marked, which is as shown in figure 2. So when a packet is received, inbound processing proceeds as follows. So these are the steps that follows. First one, if the received packet falls within the window and is new, then the MAC is checked. I repeat, if the received packet falls within the window and this packet is a new one, then the MAC or message authentication code is checked. If the packet is authenticated, the corresponding slot in the window is marked, which is as shown here. Secondly, If the received packet is to the right of the window and it is also a new packet, then the MAC is again checked. If the packet is authenticated, the window is advanced so that this sequence number is the right edge of the window and the corresponding slot in the window is marked. Lastly, if the received packet is to the left of the window or if authentication fails, the packet is discarded and this is an auditable event. So there are three cases here. Firstly, if the received packet falls within the window and if the packet is authenticated, then the corresponding slot in the window is marked. Secondly, if the received packet is to the right of the window and the packet is authenticated, in this case the window is advanced so that this sequence number is the right edge of the window and the corresponding slot in the window is marked. Thirdly, if the received packet is to the left of the window or if the authentication fails, then such packet is going to be discarded. So this was about anti-replay mechanism. Next we have transport versus tunnel mode in ESP or encapsulating security payload. Now before getting into the details of these two modes, let's have a zest about these two modes in the first place. So the transport mode is used to encrypt and optionally authenticate IP data. It can do traffic analysis but is efficient and it is good for ESP host to host traffic. Next, coming towards the tunnel mode encrypts entire IP packet. It adds new header for the next hop and it is good for VPNs and gateway to gateway security. Let us now discuss transport and tunnel modes in ESP. Now figure 3 shows two ways in which the IPsec ESP service can be used. In the upper part of the figure, encryption and optionally authentication is provided directly between the two hosts. So as we have two computers here in the first figure which are nothing but the two hosts. Next, the lower figure shows how tunnel mode operation can be used to set up a VPN or virtual private network. In this example, an organization has 4 private networks which are interconnected across the internet. Now hosts on the internal networks use the internet for transport of data but do not interact with other internet-based hosts. So what the hosts on the internal networks do, they use the internet for transport of data but they do not interact with other internet-based hosts. By terminating the tunnels at the security gateway to each internal network, the configuration allows the hosts to avoid implementing the security capability. Now, the former technique, that is the transport mode, is supported by a transport mode SA, that is security association, while the latter technique, which is nothing but the second figure, which encompasses tunnel mode, it uses a tunnel mode SA or security association, and hence the name. Here, let us understand the difference between transport and tunnel mode in more detail. Now the transport mode ESP is used to encrypt and optionally authenticate the data carried by IP, that is a TCP segment, as shown in figure 4b. For this mode using IPv4, the ESP header is inserted into the IP packet immediately before the transport layer header such as TCP, UDP or ICMP, and an ESP trailer like padding, pad length and next header fields is placed after the IP packet, as you can see here. Here, if authentication is selected, then the ESP authentication data field is added after the ESP trailer. The entire transport level segment plus the ESP trailer are then encrypted. Now authentication covers all of the ciphertext plus the ESP header. In the context of IPv6, ESP is viewed as an end-to-end payload. That is, it is not examined or processed by intermediate routers. Therefore, the ESP header appears after the IPv6 base header and the hop-by-hop routing and fragment extension headers. Now, the destination options extension header could appear before or after the ESP header, depending on the semantics desired. For IPv6, encryption covers the entire transport level segment plus the ESP trailer plus the destination options extension header if it occurs after the ESP header. Again, authentication covers the ciphertext plus the ESP header. Nextly, the transport mode operation may be summarized as follows. At the source, the block of data consisting of the ESP trailer plus the entire transport layer segment is encrypted and the plain text of this block is replaced with its ciphertext to form the IP packet for transmission. Authentication is added if this option is selected only. So what happens at the source is in transport mode, the block of data which is consisting of the ESP trailer and the entire transport layer segment is encrypted. So once it is encrypted, this encrypted text or the ciphertext is sent to form the IP packet for transmission. Then authentication is added only if this option is selected. Next, the packet is then routed to the destination. Here, each intermediate router needs to examine and process the IP header plus any plain text IP extension headers but does not need to examine the ciphertext. So what this intermediate router is going to do? It is going to examine and process only the IP header plus plain text IP extension header and not the ciphertext. That is, it is not going to examine the ciphertext or the encrypted text. Lastly, the destination node examines and processes the IP header plus any plain text IP extension headers. Then, on the basis of the SPI in the ESP header, the destination node decrypts the remainder of the packet to recover the plain text transport layer segment. So as you can see, the source node encrypts the data along with authentication if needed, and the destination node decrypts the data to obtain the plain text. Now moving towards the tunnel mode ESP. The tunnel mode ESP is used to encrypt an entire IP packet as you can see in figure 4C. For this mode, the ESP header is prefixed to the packet and then the packet plus the ESP trailer is encrypted. Now this method can be used to counter traffic analysis. Now because the IP header contains the destination address and possibly source routing directives and hop-by-hop option information, it is not possible simply to transmit the encrypted IP packet prefixed by the ESP header because intermediate routers would not be able to process such a packet. So to repeat, now since the IP header contains the destination address and possibly some source routing directives and hop-by-hop information, it is not possible to transmit the encrypted packet prefixed by the ESP header. The reason is because the intermediate routers may not be able to process such a packet. Therefore, what we do is it is necessary to encapsulate the entire block, that is ESP header plus ciphertext plus authentication data if it is present, with a new IP header that will contain sufficient information for routing but not for traffic analysis. Now, comparing the transport and tunnel mode, since the transport mode is suitable for protecting connections between hosts that support the ESP feature, the tunnel mode is useful in a configuration that includes a firewall or other sort of security gateway that protects a trusted network from external networks. In the latter case, that is, in tunnel mode, encryption occurs only between an external host and the security gateway or between two security gateways. And this relieves hosts on the internal network off the processing burden of encryption and simplifies the key distribution task by reducing the number of needed keys. Further, it protects or prevents traffic analysis based on the ultimate destination. To give an example, consider a case in which an external host wishes to communicate with a host on an internal network which is protected by a firewall and in which ESP is implemented in the external host and the firewalls. The following steps occur for transfer of a transport layer segment from the external host to the internal host. Let's see the steps now. The first is the source prepares an inner IP packet with the destination address of the target internal host. Now this packet is prefixed by an ESP header, then the packet and ESP trailer are encrypted and authentication data may be added. The resulting block is then encapsulated with a new IP header, that is base header plus optional extensions such as routing and hop by hop options for IPv6 whose destination address is the firewall. This forms the outer IP packet. In the next step, the outer packet is routed to the destination firewall. Here, each intermediate router needs to examine and process the outer IP header plus any outer IP extension headers, but it does not need to examine the ciphertext. In the third step, the destination firewall examines and processes the outer IP header plus any outer IP extension headers. Then, on the basis of the SPI in the ESP header, the destination node decrypts the remainder of the packet to recover the plain text inner IP packet. Now this packet is then transmitted in the internal network. Last step, the inner packet is routed through 0 or more routers in the internal network to the destination host. So this was about the transport and tunnel mode operation with respect to authentication and encryption in ESP or encapsulating security payload. So this was about encapsulating security payload or ESP. We shall cover the rest of the parts in the next class. Thank you.